Let's talk about whether we are born an inclusive leader or if it's a learned skill, right? That's one of the comments or question we had. I really like this question. It's the notion of being born into something because an inclusive leader today, an inclusive leader yesterday, an inclusive leader 10 years from now are going to be very different. So, are we born one? I think the first thing we can say is when you look at babies, they are naturally inclusive. They're welcoming everything at all times. Everything is welcome. Every perspective is welcome. Even language, whichever language you offer, whichever food, whichever environment, they are welcoming everything. Do they include? No, they integrate. But it's they are in a process which is called the formative years, beginning of life, and quite often what we see in leaders is the outcome or the fruit of those formative years. Added to that, a pinch of education system or the school and some conditioning from TV, phone, social media, whatever is influencing at the time. And then you get your leader done. Then therefore the community is co-opting a specific person based on fair or unfair rules. That doesn't really matter, which is then identified as the right type of leader for this at this moment for this project. And that's what we get. Our leader is chosen. No, an inclusive leader is a fruit, is a result of a long process and is maintained in situation by this process. That's the only reason behind the tenure of a leader beyond themselves is the capacities they have to remain pertinent or fair representation or good representation of the people they represent. But that takes us to the formative years. And everyone here, if you look at yourself and look at how your type of family you're born into, but also the position you're born in this family. Are you the eldest? Are you the youngest, if you have one or more siblings? Are you the middle one? Or are you the twin? Or are you a single child? And are you son or daughter of elder, twins, youngest, middle, single child? All of this will have tremendous impact on the way you look at the world and the way you relate to other people and the way you lead and being led. Like, for instance, if I speak to the eldest in the room here and just listening to this or watching this, big chances are that you are quite busy. You're quite busy doing what is the right thing to do, or you're quite busy in knowing what is the right thing to do and letting people know. And you're also quite busy managing your own guilt of not having done enough. Whether you're a man or a woman. Of course, if you're the eldest as a man, if you're the eldest as a woman in an Asian context or European context, or with this would have very different results on how you've been raised and therefore how you see authority and respond to authority and apply your authority in the way you lead others. If you are the youngest one, big chances are that you can get away with anything at all times because you have learned very early on that whatever you do, whatever you say is going to be forgiven or is going to be appreciated or is going to be celebrated. And therefore you have this fantastic capacity to trust the environment, to be forgiving and to recognize you and to appreciate you. And that's a tremendous, so rich if you think about capacity for thinking out of the box, so being imaginative or creative from a place of joy or place of appreciation. And by here, I no mean I'm trying to apply this experience to all of the youngest people here. I know there are many, many ways to look at it. But it would be interesting maybe to look at how you relate with other people based on their position in the family constellation. And also how you relate with your parents based on their own position in the family constellation. And how when parents are self-aware or have done their own personal development work, they transmit or they bring over some of patterns. And those of you who didn't have the opportunity to maybe develop an awareness about the behavior being recognized in this different position in the family system or story, we carry over completely unconsciously exactly what we don't want it for ourselves. So those of you who are parents, have a look at your kids, young or old, all to come, and smile a bit and look at what's going on there. And also, maybe this will give you the opportunity to look at your childhood in different perspective. But that has an impact on the way people interact. If we take the picture of, we all sometimes wear our suit or jeans or whatever is a new suit these days, have we really changed from those early years? Or have we learned to put a bit more makeup and a bit more gray hair, a bit more maturity makeup on our faces and our ideas and our ways of behaving, pretending that we are not the children we were? Have a look at that and have a look at how this is inviting you to be more or less inclusive in your way of working with others. That's all I wanted to share with you at this point. Thank you for listening.